it's so important, and it's such a fundamental that so many people don't do. They just go to the gym and let's just say in the best case scenario, they actually have like a written program that they're following. The problem though is most of the time they'll follow it, but there's no feedback loop of writing down what they actually ended up doing.
Hello everybody and welcome to the supersetyourlife.com podcast. This is your weekly dose of inspiration, education, and entertainment to fuel your life inside and beyond the gym. We have David Dellanave, the deadlift man himself, on this episode. You're going to love it. It was an amazing conversation. Before we jump in, we're going to get into 2 client reviews of the week. First one is from Carly Kovacic. She has been with us, training with us for about a month and a half now, working on a reverse diet. She's going to start contest prep here in about a month. Her first show will be the NPC Northwest Natural, which is a drug-tested show that is going to be in Shelton, Washington this November 2022, and I will be doing that show with her. So that's going to be a lot of fun. She has been getting bigger in a good way. Scale is going up, putting on some shoulder mass, and you know what? I'm not going to say anything more about it. I'm just going to let you hear it from her. This is a video chat between her, myself, and my wife. Were coaching her together, and I did not ask her to say this. Taylor did not ask her to say any of this. This was just one of the many conversations that we have every single day because our coaching style is a very hands-on approach. We spend a lot of time with each client. We are talking basically all day, every day, throughout every day. So it's like we're working out together every single day, even though very few of our clients are local. So she is in Seattle. We make it work. She comes down to train here sometimes. We come up to train her sometimes. Okay, so here you go. Listen up. This is Carly Kovacic.
Shoulders are coming in really nicely. I'm getting a lot of comments at Body Shop on how the size of my shoulders look, I guess they look bigger to people over the last couple of weeks and just more three-dimensional. So like the striations that I'm getting here and like even just in the chest too. I think those supinated chest flies in particular and just the low incline chest press too are really hitting the chest good for me. So I guess that may even answer the question that you asked at the end. Do I need a new workout plan? And honestly, I'm loving what you have, and I still feel like I have room for improvement on things. So if it's okay to keep it the same, I don't feel stagnant at all. So, and I'm actually really enjoying the workouts too. So I think what we have going is great. My weight's back up to like 135, 136, so I think that's promising too. So in addition to just like feeling bigger and just harder and more muscular, it's nice to see the scale also be up, because even when I went down to 131, I felt more muscular, I felt bigger, but it was just like, why is my weight down? So just thank you guys. You guys are fantastic. I have absolutely no regrets, and if I had to do it all over again, I'd still hire you guys. So keep up the good work. It really makes a big difference, and you guys both inspire me. So I've always been pretty motivated, but there are times where I kind of want to take it easy, but with the program you have me on, it's sort of like, no, we're going to leave no stone unturned here as much as possible. So thank you again.
And our second client review is from Mr. Mike Williams. He is a new client that is on a 30-week program that he just started with us. He's a week into it, and he is absolutely crushing on it. So he's on a carnivore diet right now. He's going to get from 30% body fat to 10% body fat, and while he's at it, he's going to build 6 pounds of muscle. Like I said, he's off to a great start. He's already been shredded before, but not with the muscle mass that you can have with a bodybuilding style training. So that's the goal with him. Okay, so this is a text message. Again, I didn't ask him to say this. This is just a conversation that we were having a couple days ago. But he goes, man, you guys ship fast. And he texted me a picture of the welcome bundle that we sent him with a handful of supplements and stuff from Metabolic Nutrition just to kind of get him going. And I said, our clients are important to us, sir. Heart on fire emoji. How's the protein? And he goes, oh man, I know I've been out of the game for a while, but this is hands down the best protein I've ever had. So smooth. And we sent him the peanut butter whey protein isolate by Metabolic metabolic nutrition. This stuff is like crack cocaine. It is so good. It is, I would say, borderline addictive. So you can find all of our supplements at supersetyourlife.com. The peanut butter protein powder, as of the time of this recording, is out of stock. It is literally impossible for us to keep this stuff on the shelves. It's extremely popular, and so when we do have it in stock, it goes fast. You can check back on the website. We are very, very on top of our inventory, and so we do have more that is getting in either today or tomorrow. We placed an order earlier this week, so if something on our website says out of stock, please feel free to shoot me an email. We hate losing sales to Amazon. So and everything on our website is at least $1 cheaper than what you will find on Amazon. So if you're looking for a good whey protein isolate, that's the place to get it, supersetyourlife.com. Okay, and then, if anybody has any coaching inquiries at all, feel free to text me at 206-743-1346. We are completely booked this month, but depending on the month, sometimes we have room for 2 or 3 new clients. Sometimes we don't have room for any. But we are always open to 15-minute free phone consultations. And so if you are looking for a coach, if you want a solid meal plan, if you have a specific goal that you want some accountability for, if you want to build muscle, if you want to lose fat, we are your coaches, and we are happy to talk to you at a time that works for you. Okay, with that, we're going to get into the interview now with Mr. David Dellanave. Hey, everybody, we got David Dellanave. He is a lifter, coach, and owner of the Movement Minneapolis in the Twin Cities. He implements biofeedback techniques, teaching his clients ranging from athletes to general population to truly understand what their bodies are telling them. David's book, Off the Floor, a manual for deadlift domination. Got it right here in front of me. Never go very far without it, very long without it. It's been a close second to Arnold's Bodybuilding Encyclopedia in my most frequently revisited training books and training resources. You know, the deadlift, in my opinion, and I think Mr. Dellanave would agree, is the king of exercise. Maybe a close second to the squat, but I think it's better than the squat because it's practical. It's something that you do every day. You can lift more weight than with any other exercises in most cases, so you just feel like a beast, and it just makes it flat out fun. He covers in detail the purpose and the execution of just about every deadlift variation that's ever been invented. And what I've found most useful is those couple chapters in the back that he teaches not only how to heal and work through back injuries, but how to keep progressing when you do have back injuries. And that's accomplished more for me and for my training than like all the chiropractor visits in the world. So our clients love deadlifts. It's one of my favorite exercises to teach. So I was like, what would they like more than to have the deadlift guy himself on our show? Worst could happen is he says no. So I reached out, and Mr. Dellanave generously agreed to give us some of his valuable time on our show. So ladies and gentlemen, give it up for Mr. David Dellanave.
Thanks, man. Very kind intro. I really appreciate that.
Yeah. No, speaking of kind and humble, we were just talking about this before we started recording, but like I'm trying to put together your bio, and you're just not a self-promoter, man. You know, you're a super humble dude, and something that I have a lot of respect for. I know this is the first thing that everybody is asking and everybody is wondering is, what is your all-time heaviest deadlift, sir?
So I kind of have 2 all-time best deadlifts. I had a 605 Jefferson, which was just under triple body weight at the time. And then I also have just 605 traditional deadlift, which was definitely triple body weight at the time.
Yeah, I'm looking at your Jefferson Deadlift on page 34 of your book. This is probably I've read these pages probably, I'm not even kidding, 20 times, because when I had herniated discs, it was something that I used to keep progressing through it. So I went as heavy as 455, which compared to what you did is not that impressive at all, considering your lower body weight than me too. But there it is. So 5 pounds. So
it's 4. I don't care. You know, it's like Henry Rollins said, like 455 pounds is still 455 pounds. Like it's still a big deadlift. And yeah, I mean, the Jefferson, I sort of have become synonymous with it because I sort of promoted this exercise so much. Because it's fantastic. It's a really, really great variation. And within the sort of macro variation of the Jefferson, there you can tweak it and change it a little bit in so many different ways that it just makes it really, really versatile. I mean, it was probably almost like my number one go-to variation with people, especially people who had a back injury or said, I can't deadlift because it hurts my back or something. I'd say, okay, that's fine. How about we just do something that looks like this? And they'd say, okay, yeah, that's fine. And it basically was a Jefferson deadlift. I wouldn't put a straight bar with 135 on the floor in front of them and say, okay, you're going to deadlift that now. But if you looked at what they were actually mechanically doing with, let's say, 2 kettlebells or something like that, it was basically a Jefferson.
That's a great idea. Yeah, I usually start my clients off with just 135 because I'm like, any lower than that is really weird. And like, you can't really use the curl bars either. That just makes it harder. And so I like the kettlebell idea. I think we might start implementing some of that.
Yeah, no, I mean, I totally agree with you. Like, if you're going to use a straight bar, you almost have to start at, 135, unless you have like 25-pound bumper plates, which at the gym, we do and we did. But yeah, kettlebells are great. Like, you take a kettlebell, even if it's a really small one. I mean, I had plenty of people that, it was not advisable to start with more than, like, let's say an 8-kilo bell in one hand and a 12-kilo bell in another. I mean, that's, like 50 pounds basically. And that was totally appropriate for them, but those would be really low to the ground. So I'd stick a yoga block or two underneath both of them, and boom, you have something that can go anywhere in any position on the floor and super versatile. And 99 times out of 100, those people would eventually progress to, deadlifting a couple hundred pounds off the floor. They just needed to start where they were at that time.
Right. Yeah. I like that idea. I've never thought of that, of having one side heavier than the other, but I could see how that would not only fix muscle imbalances, but even just recruit more stabilizing muscles too, if you're just going back and forth from side to side.
Totally. 2 for 1.
I can't remember what page it is, what page it's on, but you have a picture of a famous deadlifter that has one foot a little further in front of the other. And that's something that I've been implementing too, not just there, but on squats. And I don't know, I just feel like it's more power than, I think the biggest thing I got out of your book was, besides everything, was having, not being locked into such painfully strict form, but learning your body and learning what is the most powerful and natural pulling position to pull from. And so having even like a little bit of a staggered stance, I don't know, it just feels like I get a little more leverage, a little more torque getting it off the ground.
Absolutely, without a doubt. If we could look inside of our body and see what the lengths and levers and lines of stress were, they would not be symmetrical. Like that's just a fact. Like if you could strip all the muscle and tissue away and you just had bones left, and then you put them side by side, they're not perfectly identical from one bone to another. They're shaped a little bit differently. Their lengths are a little bit different. And so then you put the tissue on top of that, and that means that the tissue is not inherently the same. If the bone isn't the same, the tissue can't be, right? So now you have 2 bones that are slightly different lengths, which means you have muscles that are now slightly different lengths. Okay, so if you put yourself into that perfectly symmetrical position, you're forcing one of those by definition. So yeah, I mean, asymmetry is definitely one of the biggest things I want people to take away.
Absolutely. And that's on page 31, by the way, Dmitry Klokov. Of course, the guy's Russian.
Oh yeah, Klokov, for sure.
Yeah,
for sure. Super asymmetrical deadlift.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he's got one foot. He's got literally his toes next to his heels of his other foot in this picture.
Yep. It's almost like you could call it like a B stance deadlift.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Did you get that logbook in the mail, by the way?
You know what? I have not had time to go to the front desk yet. I know that it's delivered because I got an email about it, and I haven't gotten a chance. I've been running from one thing to another since it arrived yesterday.
No worries. The only reason I ask is because so I designed that book, and one of the inspirations in designing it is in your first couple chapters and the way that you teach progressive overload. That was kind of the inspiration behind it. And so literally all it is you're tracking, it's designed for bodybuilders because that's what I do and that's what I teach. But progressive overload has been something that has stuck with me these last 5 years, ever since I studied this. And so
You need to have a PR every single workout, in your words. I'm basically paraphrasing what you said. And every workout should be either you can pull more weight, you can pull the same weight for more reps, or you can have less rest between sets. But you're never going to know unless you look back at your last workout and see exactly what you did. So that was the purpose behind it. That was the only reason I brought that up. But
I love that, man. I was really excited when you tagged me on Instagram and that you had designed that log book. And I love that you're teaching your clients the concept of logging. It's so important, and it's such a fundamental that so many people don't do. They just go to the gym and, let's just say in the best case scenario, they actually have like a written program that they're following. The problem though is most of the time they'll follow it, but there's no feedback loop of writing down what they actually ended up doing. So I love that you're teaching that. It's such an important thing. I would argue that maybe it's more important than anything else. It's just, training. And I love that you designed your own. We did the same thing at the Movement. Probably took us too long. I don't remember how many years ago we did that, but we finally sat down and we created, originally what we did is when people checked in at the gym, the computer would actually print out a new workout sheet for them that had like blanks. Basically, it was like a training log. And then on the back of it, it had what they had entered into the computer for their workout. Yeah. And that worked really well. And we did that for a lot of years. But I definitely, as I kind of observed that over time, I realized that there was value in somebody just having like a notebook with all of that sort of same information. And man, this is not unique to fitness training, right? Like I'm getting my pilot's license right now. I'm like days away from finishing it. And one of the biggest things in flight training is keeping a logbook. You don't get to just show up for your check ride and be like, yeah, I'm ready to go. I've done a bunch of flying over the past 3 months. No, the examiner wants to see exactly how many hours have you done solo, because you have a minimum of 10. They want to know exactly how many night flight hours you've done because you have a minimum of 3. And you don't get to just tell them like, yeah, no, I did it. Don't worry about it. I'm pretty sure I remember that I did it. Like, you have a logbook and there's a reason for that, Yeah, that's a big one for sure.
Totally. Thanks. Yeah. And that's why we call our podcast Super Set Your Life too, because to your point, this is basically exactly what you just said, is that fitness, whether in your case it's strength and more functionality, CrossFit, and for me, it's more aesthetics. In both cases, tracking and logging and seeing your progress is just such a tangible way to grow your discipline, your capacity, and it makes you better at being a pilot in your case, and being a dad in my case, and being a business owner,
Yeah. It's motivating too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's something to where you can do something that you have 100% control of, and you can expect a result, and then you get your result and you can see it on paper. I mean, that's something that really builds confidence.
Yeah, absolutely.
Could we talk about biofeedback training?
Yeah, of course.
Okay. Would you mind giving just like a minute-long crash course, if that's possible, on what the purpose of biofeedback training is and how you use it?
Sure, absolutely. So the idea of biofeedback training is basically predicated on the idea that everything you do either makes you better or worse. Okay. And that may seem obvious in the long term, like, oh, okay, yeah, if I exercise, I get better. And if I don't exercise, I get worse. Fine. But even on the shortest possible timeline, things make you better or worse. Like, let's say one exercise versus another could be better or worse. So let's make an example of that. And a lot of times when I'm trying to explain a concept, what I like to do is kind of jump to the extreme to explain it. And so the example I'd give, if let's say you do an exercise, like let's say you do a squat and you hurt your back in that rep in doing it, we can agree that made you worse, right? Like, you did an exercise, now you're in pain, now you're hurt, it made you worse. Okay. The flip side of that isn't as obvious, but you could like take an extreme of that and say, okay, you do a squat and you PR your best ever 1 rep max. You could say, yeah, that very obviously made me better. I did something I've never been able to achieve before. So if we have those two extremes of like the exercise that clearly made you worse and the exercise that clearly made you better, there's all this sort of gray area in between where how do I know if it's making me better or worse? And what's cool about the body is that it is one of the most insanely responsive systems that probably exists. Like we aren't capable of making machines with the complexity of like the human body and the human nervous system. And it's always responding and reacting, right?
Right.
And so your nervous system will react to the stimulus that is applied to it. And so that's what brings us to exercise. If you do an exercise, you can immediately see the response in the body of how it's reacting to it, whether it's better or worse. And you can measure that. You can measure it in a bunch of different ways. The one that's become really popular these days with like fitness trackers and devices like the Whoop band, the armband, and there's a ring, the Aura ring. It's heart rate variability, right? It's basically measuring the differences between the beats of your heart. And within those differences, you can sort of understand how sympathetic or parasympathetic the nervous system is. And then you can use that to trend and figure out if the body is a little too stressed out or possibly even too relaxed and for like the best optimal readiness. You can do the exact same thing, but with range of motion. And that's what I do. And that's what I teach. And that's kind of what I go over in off the floor. And basically every fitness information thing I put out there is saying, okay, if every exercise makes you better or worse, we only want to do the ones that make us better. So how can we determine that? We can use range of motion to determine that. So we do things that instantaneously make our range of motion better because we know that in doing so over the long term, they're also making us better in other ways. And I'll tell you, I've not found in, well over a decade of kind of being involved in fitness, I haven't found anything better or more effective than it, whether it's training for performance or training for like recovering from an injury or something like that. Like if you have an injury and you can train around it by finding all of the things that test well via biofeedback, you're able to heal that injury faster than, let's say, an approach where you're not testing anything. You're just maybe doing, like, let's say a physical therapist gives you a program that, based on the physiology and the biomechanics should heal that injury. That's great. That's a really good starting point. But all else being equal, you take that physical therapist program and you take somebody who's biofeedback testing it and somebody who's not testing it, they're just doing it blindly. The person who's biofeedback testing it is going to heal faster and recover more quickly. And the reason for that is because you're always, with biofeedback, you're always applying just the right amount of stimulus to get the response, and you're not overdoing it or doing the wrong things like the person who's blindly following it. And we, we're always like constantly shifting, constantly having different demands placed on us. And, what's good one day might not be good the next. And conversely, you could maybe have 3 sets of 10 programmed in the program, but maybe if you got really great recovery the previous 1 or 2 days, you could do 4 sets of 20 and actually create more of a stimulus that then, you obviously need to recover from. So that's not a super short version, but I think that's a pretty comprehensive explanation of the benefits of biofeedback and briefly how to approach it. And we can take it wherever you want from there.
Yeah, no, that's fantastic. Anybody listening to this, first of all, you got to get the book, but that's on page 13 where he goes into biofeedback testing. I think what you heard was, even more in depth than that. And so, can we walk through a practical example of like, okay, it could be a real story, like something that that you actually did, but like so you're going into the gym and you're wondering, it's leg day. What leg exercise should I do? How would you use biofeedback testing to identify which leg exercise will be the most beneficial to start with?
Sure. So I guess you could have 2 options. You could say, okay, it's just leg day. I just want to train my legs. It doesn't matter what I'm going to do. Or you could have, it's leg day, but you have a program that you have in mind. Let's say you have a program. I think most people should. I think you should have some sort of skeleton of what you're going to do, because it can be very overwhelming. In some ways, more overwhelming if you don't have a ton of experience. And in other ways, it's even more overwhelming if you have a ton of experience, because now you have this entire universe of possibilities. If you only know of 2 leg exercises, you only have 2 options. So let's say you have a program, you go in and let's say you're going to start out with some squats. Okay. Just some, I don't know, barbell back squats. So what you would do is you'd say, okay, I want a back squat. I'm going to first check my range of motion. You can use any range of motion. Obviously, the big one that I teach, and there's a variety of reasons for that we can go into if you want to, but we don't need to. I think the toe touch is the easiest and most effective. So just very simply kind of bend forward.
That's what I always do. Yeah, I did that one this morning. But sorry to interrupt. I want to hear how you.
No, not at all. Yeah, I think it's the best. And like I said, we can go into it on a tangent later if you want to.
Yeah,
so
this is great. I'd love to talk about this. It's easy to teach. It's simple. I think this is good practical stuff.
Yep. And the easiest thing about the best thing about the toe touch is it's very easy to see where your actual mark is. So I bend forward, and let's say I'm kind of at mid shin. That's my starting point.
Mm-hmm.
So then I would do a couple of squats, and it could just be like simulating a barbell squat. So I'd kind of maybe throw the bar on my back, maybe not, just get in that position, do a couple back squats, shake out a little bit of tension, and then check my range of motion again. And what you're going to find is that your range of motion is typically either better, the same, or worse. Same or worse, I wouldn't back squat. I would maybe goblet squat. And so let's just say it's worse. Okay. All right. Now I'm not going to back squat today. So, what could I do? Let's goblet squat. So I would get into a goblet squat position that completely changes the leverages. It's more anterior. It changes your upper body positioning significantly. It's a very different thing, but it's still fundamentally a squat. You're still going to be stressing the legs for the most part. You're going to take a little bit of load off the lower back maybe, but you're still stressing the trunk. So I do a couple goblet squats, and then I would go back and again, check my range of motion. And let's say, cool, my range of motion is better now. It's actually better than it was when at that initial baseline. All right, so goblet squats are good. So now I flip through my training log and I look and I see what I did the previous time that I did goblet squats. Maybe that was, 3 or 4 weeks ago. I know how much weight that was. I know how many sets and reps I did. I go, okay, now I kind of have a baseline for that. Like, let's say, goblet squats, obviously kettlebells work great. Let's say I did it with a 32 kilo kettlebell. Maybe I decide that day what seems to be good, and there's no wrong answer to this. It's kind of just whatever you want. What seems to me to be good would be to do more than I did last time, but with the same weight. Okay. So I could bump up to the 36, but let's just say I'm going to keep the 32. I'm just going to do more. And what I would do is I would just go ahead and do my first set. What I would do is I'd do 1 rep with the 32 kilo and I'd check my range of motion again and see if it's better. And let's say, okay, yep, it's better. I've confirmed it. Good to go. So what I would probably do is just go ahead and do my first set. And I would stop at the very first sign of my speed decreasing on that rep, because that's generally the beginning of the downtrend of an exercise getting worse. And the getting worse usually ends in like pain, damage, or total failure of the exercise. I never personally train to failure. I think that there can be reasons to train to failure, but I generally don't.
Wow.
So I would do, let's say I did a set of 13. Okay. And that's where my speed decreased, set the bell down, check my range of motion, confirm that it was better. And you could say right there, if I had done sets of 10 with the 32 kilo before, I've basically already set a PR for the day, right? Like I've already done 3 reps more than my previous, assuming that I'm always looking for the best I can possibly do before that speed decrease. Boom, I've already succeeded and I've already PR'd. Anything I do beyond that is just sort of extra, bonus. And I would more than likely continue and do more. So I do, 2, 3, 4 sets, something like that. So now I can go through my logbook and I can see, okay, I've got multiple PRs. I did 13, 12, and 10. Okay, so that's 3 sets where I've done better than I ever did before by 2 or 3 reps. I've done more total volume than I did in that previous last time. And I also generally encourage people to keep track of time. And so you can kind of divide the volume over time and get density.
Get better at that.
Yep, you can get better at that too. So let's say I improved on my density as well. So I've got like 3 or 4 PRs there. And that's it. I don't need to do any more goblet squats. I've already achieved something new, and I'd move on to the next exercise. Maybe I do a couple single leg, like some lunges or something like that, to just like really hammer the quads and hamstrings. And you just proceed forward with your entire workout like that. And if you run into something where, let's say I don't know, I'm just spitballing here. You go to do some calf exercises, and the first one that you do doesn't test well. And the second one you do doesn't test well. And the third one you do doesn't test well. That might be an indication that today is not the day for calves. Why is that? I don't know. Maybe you dressed up in heels and you walked around in heels and it screwed your calves up. I don't know. But today's not the day. So typically if I do 2 or 3 exercises and they don't test well in sort of a category, I might just, move on from that. And yeah, that's generally how you would approach a biofeedback training session.
Wow, that was incredible. Thanks so much, Ben. Yeah, and calves for any of our power lifters or CrossFit athletes that are listening. In case you don't know where the calf muscle is, it's. I'm sorry, being a bodybuilder, I just have to give shit to the CrossFit crowd.
That's super fair.
So this morning I did biofeedback personally, even though it was shoulder day and chest day, because it doesn't have to be just for deadlifts. This can be for anything. Would it be 100%. Would it be okay if I kind of walked through what I did this morning, and maybe you can critique and let me know if that was good or anything that maybe I could have done differently?
Absolutely.
Okay, so here we go. So it's chest and shoulder day, and those are the main muscle groups that I need to hit today, right? I'm about 24 weeks out, almost 24 weeks out from my next show. So tail end of a bulk, whole body hurts. This is the heaviest, biggest I've ever been in my life. Which by the way, I don't know what your previous is, but you are yoked. So kudos to you. Good work on that. I appreciate that. Thanks a lot. It's been 3 years of not competing and eating a whole bunch of food, lifting hard, 3-hour workouts, and pretty much never missing a day. So if I'm not,
good for you, man.
Thanks. If I'm not bigger by now, then I did something wrong. But appreciate it though. Thanks a lot. So all right. So it's chest and shoulder day, and I had a huge meal last night. My wife and I. It was date night. Slept like a baby too. Drank some alcohol. That always helps. But I had a lot of food. Went to all you can eat Korean barbecue. Right. So I'm like,
nice. Okay.
Yeah, I got all this glycogen. Just like ready to go. It's time to go heavy. Did my 20-minute cardio warm up, and then started doing some flies and experienced some shoulder pain. I'm like, darn, I really wanted to start with heavy bench, right? So I'm like, well, I'm just about to record a podcast with David Dellanave. Why don't I do some biofeedback testing? So am I correct in understanding that that it works if you do the exercise with or without weight?
100%. Yep. Okay.
That's what I thought. So I touched my toes, and I couldn't quite get to my toes. And so I touched like 3 or 4 inches away from my toes on my leg. So that was the first test. And then I did 1 rep of bench press, just literally on the bench without any weight, without the bar, going through the motion. And that hurt my shoulder without any weight. And so then I went to touch my toes again, but the range of motion was about the same. Okay. So in my other bread and butter lift, I know this is a bad exercise for you and that every chiropractor in the world hates this one, but behind the neck presses, it's a good.
I love them. I don't think they're bad.
Good. Thanks. I'm glad that we agree on that. I went to go do behind the neck presses and did just 1 rep without any weight. And I'm not even kidding. I could touch my toes. I got 4 inches better range of motion. Went back and did bench again, bench in quotations, because this is all without any weight. And my range of motion is shortened too. And part of my workouts too is prayer. And so something I always do is I say, God, reveal to me right now whether I should do bench or whether I should do behind the neck presses. And so literally that was kind of my way of going, all right, I think that was his way of answering my prayer. I don't know, but the biofeedback told me that I needed to do behind the neck presses. So I went ahead and did that. And then after 6 or 7 sets of those, I feel like it just got my rotator cuff or whatever was hurting in there. Moving, did some flies in between sets, and then just got a PR in bench right after that because it's the tail end of my bulk right now. So I really, really wanted it. But I think that was a good move. And I think the biofeedback training really helped a lot. I'm not sure if I did it right.
Well, first of all, there's no wrong. Second, I would say that was a perfect application of it. Maybe we could say the only way to do it wrong would be that if it didn't test well and it caused you pain and you did it anyway, like at that point, I would sort of just be like, all right, well, I don't know why you're even bothering to test. If you're just going to ignore your body's feedback, then you might as well just not test and do whatever you're going to do anyway. Yeah. But I really like that approach. And it's a perfect example of how the body is always changing and how you can use okay, let's take a slight detour. I'm sure you're familiar with corrective exercise, like the concept and the term. Maybe the listeners are familiar with it. Corrective exercise to me is an absolutely ridiculous term. I don't think that there is any such thing as corrective exercise. There are things that make you better and things that make you worse. Okay. So that behind the neck press, in this case, because it tested well and because it made you better, it was a corrective exercise. You know, did you do it at corrective exercise weights? Probably not. It sounds like you did it at your appropriate working weights once you actually got up to it. And in doing so, you changed something about your body, whether it, we want to call it warming up or whatever. It doesn't matter. You made bench be possible by doing that, right? And then you were able to bench. And it could have been that bench was still a no-go and it still hurt after the behind the neck presses. That's perfect. Another thing you could have done just to kind of give you some ideas is like, okay, I really want to bench, but straight bar bench isn't working. Well, you still have a lot of other options. You have wide grip bench, you have close grip bench, you have neutral grip with dumbbells, you have a normal grip with dumbbells, but it's, not being locked into a barbell, that can change it. Yeah. I don't know how many specialty bars you have, but you might have neutral grip specialty bars or like the diagonal grip specialty bars. I mean, there's all kinds of things that you can still do something that's very similar to a bench and, recruits 90%, but in a slightly different way. So no, I love that approach. And that's exactly what I think over the long term will increase your progress and reduce your injuries, because that's the situation where a lot of people who don't have a method to check in to that feedback say, oh, my shoulder kind of hurt. And then they push forward anyway. And then their bicep tendon blows off, their pec, and they're, injured for 6 months and never going to be put back the same. So no, I love that, man.
Right. Thanks. Yeah. We got a couple specialty bars. I was using the bamboo bar. Have you ever used a bamboo bar?
Yeah. They're pretty wild.
They're awesome, aren't they?
Yeah.
Yeah. I certainly don't have as many as you do, though. I've seen pictures of your gym and with the brick wall and everything. Oh man, it's just like your gym looks beautiful. I really want to get a workout in there, but your whole rack.
Oh man. Well, you're a little late. We actually moved out of that space in October of last year.
Yeah. I was looking at your website and I was like, what? They're closed until further notice. What happened?
Yeah, it's kind of a hiatus. I definitely want to reopen the gym, but I want to reopen it in a slightly different format, which is kind of what I did when COVID happened. COVID just made it untenable. That the state closed us down for several months, and I just kind of saw the writing on the wall. But what I did when I reopened was I basically made the gym into a co-op. I didn't have any staff trainers anymore, and I didn't charge anything for training. I just provided the space and I provided the programming, and people utilized it, both the space and the programming. And it was really awesome. And that's going forward kind of the contribution that I want to make to fitness and how I want to be involved. I personally don't want to make fitness like a career anymore. There's a bunch of reasons for that, but the kind of the fundamental for it is like, I feel like I've made my contribution to fitness. Like I feel like I don't really have anything new to say. Like biofeedback, I didn't invent it. I just kind of learned it from one of my mentors or two of my mentors. And then I taught other people, and I made it. I probably have taught the most people of anyone at this point. But I don't have anything new to say about it. And this maybe is something you found. Once you understand how to listen to your own body's feedback with biofeedback, you need a lot less information coming in, because you have all of the tools to kind of like filter and make choices. And it makes a lot of the stuff out there kind of useless, to be honest. So I don't feel like I have like tons of contributions to make. And I personally don't like the model that we have to use in fitness for charging our clients. I think that, to be honest, it's kind of broken. And I'll give you a really short kind of version of how I see this. I think that what our clients should pay us for is our expertise, and the majority of it is upfront. Like basically our client's first program, they should pay us $1,000 or $2,000 for it, because that's the one where we're taking all of our knowledge and all of our expertise and all of our experience, figuring out what's going to be the best applied to them, and then giving it to them. And then they need to work on it for 3 to 6 or more months. And really, they don't need us. But nobody wants
after
to
that.
do
You're
that.
right. You're absolutely right.
You're good after that. But because nobody wants to spend $1,000 or $2,000 up front like that, and they think they need the ongoing coaching, we charge them $100 or a couple $100 per session for, this ongoing basis, so that we can get that much money from them. And I hated it. I hated it when I was doing it. And the closer I got to kind of getting away from it, the happier I was. I just don't like how it works. Like, I love coaching people. Admittedly, I don't love coaching people that need to be pushed, like that need someone to nudge them along and convince them to work out. If you don't want to work out, I don't give a shit.
It's exhausting.
Don't work out. I'm not, that's fine. Leave. Like, don't come. Like, I don't care. But the people that are excited about learning, they're excited about their progress. They want to learn more about themselves. They want that feedback and expertise, and say, hey, you've been doing this a long time. What do you think? And then I'll say, well, what I think is this. Now go test it. I love that stuff. But the economic model just doesn't really work. And I didn't want to scratch and claw and try to make something that didn't work for me anymore. And listen, there's tons of people out there that do make it work, and I commend them. But I think that if I could flip a switch and we could have clients pay up front for that expertise, and then go work their butt off for 6 months and, do all of the sessions, and then come back and say, okay, this is what I learned in the past 6 months. How do we tweak it and adjust it? I think we'd all be better off, but that's probably not going to happen.
Yeah, no, what you described with the 3 month program, the 6 months program, that is exactly our business model, what Taylor and I do. And I completely see what you're saying on that versus the other business model. And what Taylor and I do, because we do that full time, and what Taylor and I do as far as coaching goes, like, it is so much work. And I've told people that ask, I'm like, I would not wish what I do on my worst enemy, but for me, it's perfect, and it's flat out what I was meant to do. So,
that's awesome, man.
Yeah. All right.
So to summarize, my contribution that I want to make in the future is to give people a place for community of like-minded. The people that, gyms sort of survive on the people that don't show up, and that sucks. That's not something I want to be a part of. Like, your average, like, Planet Fitness has 1,000 members, most of which never show up, and like 10 people are there every day. I want to give people a place to build that community of like-minded people genuinely interested in training. And I want to cut the overhead to the absolute bottom so that that's possible. And it is possible because I did it after COVID. When you don't have staff salaries to pay and you're just paying like the rent and electricity and keeping the place clean, the membership rate can be super affordable. I basically had like 30 people after COVID. I had about 30 people paying about $60 a month, and they had the entire gym to themselves.
Wow.
You know, it's amazing, but I wasn't taking a salary. There were no trainers taking a salary. Like, you have to change the model for that to work. But it's really cool, and it's a cool community. So as soon as I can find a building to put that in, probably a building that I'm going to buy just so that I own it. That's how I'm going to reopen the movement.
Okay. So I'm going to make a note to edit this out, but I don't believe anything happens by accident. And I think that somebody had a more important reason for us having this conversation than just deadlifting. So what you're describing as far as the direction you want to take the movement is really similar to what Taylor and I are planning on doing and what we've already started doing with Skullbellz Gym. Skullbellz Gym is going to be an old school classic bodybuilding gym, and it's going to be the old school 80s workout experience. Like, you go into a 50s diner, they have a jukebox, they have like everything is 50s, right? So you go into this gym and everything is 80s. It's 80s hard rock. We'll have a vinyl. We already have the vinyl record player. We're building up our tape collection, our vinyl collection, everything to make it literally the whole experience. We already got all the tanning stuff, and so it's going to be a tanning booth and everything.
That's badass.
Yeah. And I don't know if it's possible to go into business together, but at least it's worth talking about at some point later on. So.
Hey man, I can tell you from experience, this model works. And I think if you have a successful online presence, and that can be what pays your bills and pays your salary, the gym overhead can be super, super low if you don't need to pay staff, you know?
Yeah.
And you can have trainers and just have them pay a little bit of rent and have them do their own thing. Just, you know, stay out of it personally is what I think. Yeah, it definitely works. I kind of called it a collective or a cooperative. And it really works.
How long are you going to be in Miami?
3 more weeks. And then we're going to be, basically 3 more weeks.
Darn, because I don't have any reason to go to Minneapolis if that's where you're going back to. But I got a client, our like I said, our supplement supplier is down there. There's a lot of things. Danny Miami, it'd be cool to see him. Like, it'd be fun to make a trip out there and just kind of talk business. And
well, you can kick it down a little bit. I'll probably be back here in the fall, more than likely.
Okay. Yep. Well, we'll be talking more about that if that's okay with you.
Sure. Yeah.
Awesome. We're coming out with our second edition of the bodybuilding logbooks too. So when I go back and edit this podcast, I'm going to take I don't know, whatever it'll be hard to sort through everything, but like one of the coolest quotes you said and stick another one in there for the second edition.
Cool. Awesome.
Yeah. We have people that are finishing the whole book, and then it's like, they just buy the same one again. I'm like, oh, that's kind of dumb, because then they're just seeing all the same quotes over and over again. So we want to do a second edition one, and then want to do a third edition. And the third edition, I want it to be like a discipleship edition, like a little devotional, like it'll all be like Bible passages and stuff like that. That'll definitely take a bit more thought and effort to do that. But
cool, man.
Yeah, appreciate it. Okay. Another question on the Jefferson Deadlift, if you don't mind circling back to that one for the next 10 minutes that we have. Yeah, my son's getting home from school, so I got to go grab him off the bus. But okay.
No problem.
So on the Jefferson Deadlift, you said there's a whole bunch of different ways you can do that, and I've certainly found that to be the case. It seems like you can do it almost like a conventional deadlift, to where like if anybody's listening and doesn't like this, I'm sorry, but yes, I do round my back sometimes when I deadlift, right? So like you can almost do it like a conventional lift. And then it seems like you can focus on like quad isolation and make it more of a squat and use painfully strict form with your back like completely perfectly arched and safe. But that makes you have to use like a third of the amount of weight. And for me, having long femurs, like I can't even do it flat-footed either. I can do it like the conventional way, flat-footed, but if I'm going all the way down until like, like ass to grass, like a squat, my heels have to come up because that's just how my bones are built. I'm wondering if you prefer one or the other, or teach one or the other, or if it's just kind of like whatever you're trying to accomplish.
You probably know what my answer is going to be. Whatever tests the best.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Either one could be good. Either one could be better than the other. It just depends on what tests best. And of course, it depends on your goals. If you want to like smash your quads, you're going to do it in a way such that the leverage is much more on that. Yeah. It really just depends on your goals and then what tests the best.
Mm-hmm. Do you like
There's
to do
no wrong answer?
Do you like to do them barefoot or with like deadlift slippers or deadlift shoes?
My favorite training shoes, they don't even make them anymore. It's the Reebok CrossFit Light TR. They're basically the ones that Mark Bell designed with Reebok, and then they discontinued them. But they're basically just like a really flat, really wide toe box shoe. So it's kind of like almost like a Converse All-Star, but with a much wider toe box. And those are my favorite shoes. For everything other than squatting. I like to squat in squat shoes.
Right. Okay. Do you ever get emotionally hung up on the goal that you want to hit going into that workout, and then you biofeedback test and you're like, it's not the day for conventional deadlifts. It's my last week of the program. Gosh darn it. I was supposed to get a PR today, but my body's just telling me it's not the day. Do you ever have days where you just say, screw it, I'm doing it anyway, just because mentally I want that dopamine release and I want that win for the day? Like, is there any value in that? Or do you really just restrain yourself and go, you know what, not today, maybe next week?
I don't. The only situation where I would do that, or I would suggest that someone that would be a good thing to do, would be if you're competing. I think that if you're on the competitive platform, then that's the time where it doesn't matter if it tests well. Now you gotta perform, right? And that gets into a discussion about eustress and distress, and to make this super brief, like let's say we're training somebody whose job depends on their physical capability, like, I don't know, a firefighter, right? If you train with biofeedback and you train with things that test well and yada, 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 that's awesome. But there's going to come a time when you just have to perform. It doesn't matter if it tests well to carry the fire hose up the stairs. Like, you need to carry the fire hose up the stairs when the building is on fire. Totally. I kind of look at competition as a distress situation where it doesn't matter if it tests well, you just need to do it. With that being said, a training session is not a distress session unless that's like your goal for the session is to train distress. So I don't really get hung up on like, yeah, this is what I needed to do. It's my last week of my program. I need to do it because I can come back and do it next week. It doesn't matter, again, unless there's a competition coming up. And even if there is a competition coming up, but I had like a target weight I wanted to hit before the competition, in my opinion, the risk isn't worth it to push it and go for it anyway, because if I do tweak my back, I'm definitely not going to succeed in that comp, right? So I would just take the signal, say, nope, today's not the day. If there's a way that I can kind of change my program so that I can peak, wherever I need to before the comp, I would do that. But 9 times out of 10, I would not push it. I would just, go forward and then live to fight another day, because like I've had injuries. It's not fun. It takes you out of the game. It's kind of it's a little bit of a tortoise versus the hare type thing, right? Like, right. You can sprint out ahead, but as soon as you pull your hamstring sprinting, like, you're going to be walking, and then the tortoise is going to pass.
How did you know that was my last injury? It was her fault too. This dog sleeping right next to my feet right now, she pushed me and I got caught up in the heat of the moment, and yep, there it went.
Pretty common.
Yeah. Man, suitcase deadlifts. Those are ones I did last week. Those are super fun. Do you ever mess with those anymore? Or?
Yeah, for sure. Those are great, especially a suitcase deadlift into a carry and then back to a deadlift. Yeah, funny. another one that also lends itself very well to different weights, right? Like asymmetrical weights.
Back when I used to do stand-up, I had one of my jokes was, I was teaching the suitcase deadlift to my ex-girlfriend, and I had to stop because she had too much baggage.
Terrible.
Yeah, those that and the single arm ones too. They seem to be more of a back exercise, which is awesome, and it's funny, isn't it? It develops your back like better than rows and chin-ups and anything else, and it's isometric. You're not even working it through its full range of motion.
Yeah.
Cool. All right. Well, I think that's about all we have time for, sir. My son is just about to get home. Appreciate your time so much. Thanks for that. Listeners, you got to get this book. It's called Off the Floor, a Manual for Deadlift Domination. It's got a badass cover on it. That's actually the reason why I bought it was because I was like, that looks super cool. That was good marketing, sir.
Thanks, man.
Yeah. Where can people find out more about you and what you're up to right now, sir?
I don't really have anything to promote. I'm findable if you want to find me online. I'm on Twitter, Instagram, and the Google. So
sounds good.
Yeah.
Well, moral of the story is get the book, read the book, and if you want an audio book on it, you let me know and I'll record the audio book.
All right, sounds good.
Hey everyone, thanks so much for joining us on this interview with David Dellanave. Do someone a favor. Think of somebody that deadlifts with a rounded back. Send them this episode. We do have a new podcast episode every Saturday morning. We've been going strong for well over the last year. Whenever we miss a week, we do 2 the next week just to make sure that we stay on track with every single week, at least on average, having 1 new episode. And that's our commitment to you guys as listeners. So thank you very much for the support. Every rating, every review really helps us spread this message organically. Thank you so much for your support. Love you a lot. God bless. Bye-bye.